Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join us today for our Fusion for Qlik webinar, and we're going to get started. I'm joined today by my colleague Marcus Adams, and we also have a special guest, and that's Richard Brown from Great Ormond Street Hospital. So in the next 45 minutes, what we're going to do is understand what is Fusion. It's our plugin for Qlik. We're going to understand why it is a brilliant addition for a Qlik Sense Cloud customer. And we're going to look at a couple of use cases, one internal and one external, sharing some examples and inspiration, of course, from our guest today. At the end, of course, we're going to have some time for Q&A. But in the meantime, if you've got any questions, I'd like you to please type them in the chat window, and we will do our best to cover those off as we go. But it will follow up afterwards, of course, if needed. So without further ado, I would like us to get started. Today is a conversation all about how we make something difficult much easier. And before we get to that, I'd like us first to establish some context. So Marcus, can you set the scene, please? What is Qlik and where does Fusion fit into its ecosystem?
Thank you, David. Yes, and good afternoon, everyone. So Qlik has been a leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for analytics and business intelligence for 14 consecutive years now. And the market's matured. Qlik's features and capabilities have matured at an even faster rate. But Qlik is far more than a commodity dashboard tool, such a mature platform that so many companies are embracing its potential to solve all sorts of data problems and address critical business needs. It's now one of the most strategic products in their portfolio, and also, of course, the gold standard for analytics, which is Qlik Sense Cloud, incredibly powerful.
Okay, and Fusion fits with Qlik Sense Cloud, that's right.
Yeah, it does, David. Yeah, so it supercharges Qlik Sense Cloud for operational analytics use cases, typically across a breadth of an organization, but we're also increasingly seeing it being used for external use cases where organizations wish to share data analytics at scale with their business partners.
Got it. That sounds intriguing, Marcus. So if you could, I'm a sales guy, if you could give me the elevator pitch, what exactly is Fusion for Qlik?
In the fewest number of words I can use, and I use a lot often, quite simply, Fusion for Qlik is a no-code mashup portal for Qlik Sense Cloud, typically used for more guided analytics use cases.
Okay, great. And if you were to pick out for me the key benefit of the platform, what would you say that would be?
Yeah, and this is really about increasing user engagement, whether that be with your own employees, your own staff, teams, or departments, or with business partners at a scale never witnessed before. And in doing so, it's about keeping it really simple. I mean, the more we can help to simplify the user experience, in effect, human engagement with data, the more value you can unlock from your existing analytics license estate.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is that Fusion is an add-on for Qlik, drives engagement, drives adoption. In a practical sense, how does it actually do that?
Sure. So, I mean, today Qlik embraces raw data, makes it business ready, and manages and integrates data at scale for various use cases, including applied analytics, data science, automated machine learning, even application automation processing. Where Fusion is actually an add-on cloud portal that connects directly and securely to your Qlik Sense Cloud environment. It provides a really simple, intuitive, pre-configured, easy to navigate portal. So it's radically simplifying the user experience, removing the challenge of not knowing where to go to get the answers that you need in your day-to-day activities.
Okay, so that sounds to me like the user experience is a little different to Qlik Sense Cloud.
Yeah, it is a little different. And of course, we're going to see that shortly. I'm going to do a live demo a little bit later on in this session. But in a nutshell, there are two key elements of the user experience that really matter. Firstly, it's themed your way and fully integrated into your business world from a look and feel perspective. And secondly, it's really probably about the time to value for every user. Simply log in and the analytics you need for your role are right in front of you at your fingertips.
Okay, well, that sounds fantastic. So how does this trait how does it translate into business performance? What is it that makes Fusion that must-have app?
Speed, probably speed. Our customers unlock value at incredible speed, David. So what you buy today, you can quite literally turn on tomorrow and gain near instant impact. So it really boils down to faster, better decision-making and ultimately improved business performance. Quite simply, all you have to do is bring your own Qlik Sense Cloud licenses.
Awesome, awesome, I get it. So let's go back to what I said at the start and return to our original premise. Let's try and talk about, how we make the difficult much more easy. And who better to prove out this premise by introducing you all to an organization that has been on this journey with Catalyst Cloud. And that means it's time to introduce Richard Brown, the outgoing Chief Data Officer of Great Ormond Street Hospital. And Richard instigated a hospital-wide plan to roll out operational analytics using Fusion into every corner of the organization. So, Richard, if we could introduce you now, bring you in. I think the best question for me to start with is, why did you and the team decide to use Fusion rather than just sticking with Qlik Sense Cloud out of the box? Oh,
Yes.
We can't hear you, Richard.
Oh.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Oh, can you? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Don't know quite what happened. So thank you very much, David, for inviting me to this. Good. Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about how we came to choose Fusion and why we did it. Maybe just a little bit of background. So I've been with Great Ormond Street for the last 4 or 5 years, but I've worked with lots of different organizations, not necessarily in NHS, in lots of other industries. And I've worked with pretty much all the BI tools, all the sort of Tableaus and Power BIs and Qlik. And my view is that none of them really do that last mile to the user very well. There's always a bit of a gap in terms of getting it to that end user. So I think that's where I come in on this. And there's an assumption, and I've talked to the vendors about this. There's an assumption that you're prepared, everyone is prepared to learn their tool, understand what apps are about, and be able to navigate to sheets, do all of this sort of stuff in the Qlik environment. I'm trying to roll this out to execs and ward managers and service managers. They don't have the time to learn how to get to it. They just want to go to their reports, see what's relevant to them, interact with it. So actually, typically, wherever I've used one of these BI tools, I've built some sort of portal to give people access to this. Now, when I came to, we were on QlikView when I arrived, and we moved everyone onto Qlik Sense Cloud immediately. So we didn't do an intermediate on-premise version. We went straight to the cloud version. And realistically, when I saw Fusion, I went, oh, actually, this is a no-brainer. It gives us that portal access and and I'll come back to it later, maybe talk about the sort of business semantic layer on top of it that gave us that access to the Qlik capability. And it's because Fusion also uses all the Qlik APIs. You get all the functionality, but you get an environment that's very tailored to the end user.
I get it. So in terms of organizational buy-in, what was the kind of main driver for, going down this direction?
Yeah, Dave. So it was, the mass deployment thing. So I don't want, my analytics to be, my BI to be reserved to analysts across the organization. I want everybody to use it. So we have about 800 users in the system. Not all of them are active on a daily basis. We may have 400 or 500 who are using it regularly, but actually it's quite good that we've got all those other users who are casual users. It means that there are consultants and therapists out there who are coming in and using it on a casual basis. And one of the things, BI is effective, is intrinsically an intuitive tool. It's something that people can interact with without any training. We all do it today using, on our phones, on our fitness apps and our banking apps. We'll have BI, we'll have charts and reports that we interact with on those. People can get to it and immediately do it. You don't need training. So one of the things we were able to do was to get it out to people, get it in front of people, and get them using it early on. I'm not saying you don't do training. We did do training downstream, and we do, particularly as the power users, we did quite a lot of stuff. But actually, a lot of that's about what the data is telling them rather than how the tool is used. So it was really about getting that sort of mass deployment, getting it out there quickly, and getting people using it and feeling it's part of the infrastructure of the hospital. I think it's
Okay.
also worth saying that, in terms of getting buy-in, this wasn't big money in the scheme of things. This was, it was pretty easy to take it as part of the overall package.
I've got it. Okay. And you've talked about that kind of, mass deployment. When you actually did the rollout practically, was it a big bang thing, or did you pick little phases to start with?
So we were in principle phases. So I mean, it was actually, so we had ClickView, and we had quite a lot developed in ClickView, but we wanted to build new as we went to ClickSense Cloud.
Yeah.
So we would take, modules that we would deploy, which then actually went quite wide across the hospital. So for instance, early things we did were things like activity and RTT, which are used pretty universally across the hospital. But clearly it was a limited content. And as we've gone on, we've built out that content, adding, theatres and wards and beds and all of those sort of things as we've gone along, and financial data and so forth. So we're increasingly expanding the footprint, but we started, relatively small. But one of the key things was making it available and accessible across a wide audience.
Okay, great. And it was an IT project, so I'm assuming it was all perfectly smooth sailing. Or maybe there were some pitfalls or learnings that you could share with this audience that maybe you could help them deploy.
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple of lessons. So probably the main one is keeping it simple. One of the things that BI tools, BI tools have some lovely things in them. You can build all these clever things, Miko charts and average weighted distribution charts and all of these sort of things. And they have their place. They are, in an analyst community, and when people are doing detailed analysis of data, those are great. But if you want to get your end users to use them, you probably need to stick mostly to sort of line charts, bar charts, tables, KPIs, maybe a few scatter plots, but not much beyond that. And I think when we started, we tried to build some quite complex things in, and you went, oh, actually, people looked at them once, you'd explain it to a few people and they'd get it, and then they never look at it again. So, we simplified for that end user community was one of the things that we did. And I think that helped get at people using it. If they can come to a report and they can understand how the chart works and understand how they interact with it, they get all the interaction, the drill down, the slice and dice and so forth. But if they can do that easily in the data, that gets them using it. It's about that, keeping the touch and keeping them engaged in the process. I think also, and we can talk a bit more about it later maybe, is getting senior buy-in to it. And again, trying to get execs using the tool, making it simple and accessible for them was a key part of that.
Yeah, great. And to bring it back to Fusion, were there some key features in the Fusion platform that helped with that?
Yeah, and I think it's probably, and I'm going to put it down to, I think, sort of three things in the Fusion platform. So the first and most obvious one is the one we've talked about already a bit, is the organizing the data, organizing the reports. So if you think about apps and how things are designed in Qlik, they're designed around logical data models, but that's not how the organization is. We're organized, I have people who look after a ward. They don't want to have to go into an app and find beds and find, RTT and all these different apps to find out what their thing is. They want reports that tell them what's happening in their ward. And actually, what Fusion allowed us to do was to create that sort of business semantic layer that said, actually, here's the folder structure, here's wards, I open it up and I've got all the relevant reports that I want for me. And it takes you straight to what is effectively the sheet in ClickSense, and takes you to that report and lets you start to interact with it. So it's really putting that layer on top of it. And actually it works the other way, is you may have one app that's supporting multiple groups. We take the reports from each of those and put them into the relevant sections. And we have different apps that actually go to support one group, and we actually can bring all of those together through this. So it really provides that sort of business semantic layer on top of it. So that was the first thing. The second is the user groups. So we've created this menu structure that takes us through logically how the business sees the information and wants to analyze the data. The user groups in Fusion allow you to set up a user that what parts of that menu do they see effectively. So I don't necessarily want the ward managers or the service managers to see what the exec team are seeing, so they don't get that part of the menu. Similarly, the finance team will have a different menu for them, but actually the user groups allow us to very easily set up areas where people will come in, all the service managers seeing the same sort of menu, and they can drill down and find their particular service and the reports that are relevant for them. So the user groups helps us that extra step of tailoring it for end users.
Got it.
There's a third thing which I think it does, which is slightly simplification of the reports, and it goes with that thing about keeping it simple. Having created my report in Qlik, there's another step you do to put it into Fusion. It's not very long. It's about a sort of 5-minute process to take a report and put it into Fusion, but it drives a level of structure in there that makes sure that we keep the report fairly simple. And you'll see it, and I think Marcus will take you through some of it, but it shows you, it makes sure we have a relatively consistent design is really what it's doing. Because what I don't want, and one of the things that BI tools do is it allows you to put, I can put it up here, and I can put navigation down here, and I can put a chart up there, and people, I want it to be fairly straightforward. People know when they come into a particular report, where's the navigation, where's the table, where's the report, how do I interact with it? And it drives a level of that as well, which I think has been a sort of the third factor in making Fusion, how Fusion adds to the whole process for us.
Okay. And when you look at those things, those benefits, did they help the organization to scale analytics across the hospital?
Yeah, and David, that's really what this is all about. So
yeah,
I won't take it away. I do have complex charts and reports and using all the sort of maximum capability of Qlik for my analyst community, and we do use all of that. And we use Fusion Portal for some of that as well but also going direct. But what this is really is allowing us mass easy rollout. So we tied our Fusion into our Active Directory. So actually it meant I could send a URL out to anybody. In fact, we put it on our intranet. You can go and click on it. You can immediately get into something. Now, we provide a sort of basic user access that gets them some of the standard things like activity and RTT and these sort of things. But once you can have that URL, you can click into it. So we were able to get that out to everybody. No training needed. Yes, we'll come back and do training. We offer training and we provide support, documentation, and all of that. But they just need to go to the URL and they can get into it. And we got people, people would pass it on to other colleagues and it would get round. So people would go in and start to use it. So, as I say, talk about the fitness app. People know how to use this if you set it up correctly. I think one other thing I would say, I'll come back to that point about getting the exec buy-ins. So, I have the same problem with my exec. If I tell them to go into Qlik and find the app and find the report, they would not do it. But if they've got a simple URL on their desk that they can go to and it opens up and it says exec reports and it tells you, the key measures that they want to see, they go to it. It meant also that they used it interactively in meetings. So, our main access meeting, which is the sort of run that runs what's happening in the hospital and where everything is going, our chief operating officer used Qlik through Fusion interactively in the meeting to work the agenda of the meeting. He'd be drilling down and looking at a directorate or a specialty and going, why your clinical letters outstanding going up, he would be using it interactively as part of the thing. And that drove behavior that helped us really roll that out really widely across the trust.
Yeah, and I guess if the chief exec's using it, that cascades down, and it becomes, a good reason to adopt and try.
Yeah. If your boss is using it and asking you the questions about it, you make sure you know those numbers and know where they come from and what makes them up, and that means it drives a behavior of using the BI tool.
Absolutely. So tactically, how many apps do you have mashed up in the Fusion portal?
So we probably have sort of, I don't know, 12 to 15 probably live and being used through the portal. We have a lot more apps than that. And clearly we have the sort of development, tests, production type apps that we manage through the process. And we have some analytical apps, but probably 15 core ones that we're using at present. We are expanding that. We're adding new apps as we go, but that's probably where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, that comes back to the keep it simple thing, I guess.
Yeah.
In terms of, you just mentioned other areas. Have you got any examples that you could give us where you maybe could share an app with a connected agency, for example?
Yeah, so we do use in other areas. So just to say, we haven't done all of the stuff we want to do in the hospital, and we've done all the operational stuff pretty much, and we've done quite a lot of finance, but there's still more to do. We've still got some of finance to do. We've still got HR that's sitting on ClickView. These things are a long journey, and you focus on the key things that are causing you issues. We also provide. We're one of the genomic hubs, so genome sequencing. There are 7 set up around the UK, and Gosh hosts the one for North London. So we collect data from across all the different trusts that are involved in that, and we put all that data in Qlik as well. So yeah, we are using it broader than just the trust, but yeah, it's it's a never-ending journey. There's always more to put into this environment.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I really enjoyed that, Richard. I thought that was fantastic. Wonderful stuff. Thanks hugely for coming to give us some time on your Friday today. And I'd love to be able to show the Great Ormond Street portal now, but I think patient confidentiality probably precludes us from doing so. So what we're going to do, though, is take you through an instance of Fusion and show you the art of the possible. So in order to do that, I'm going to hand back over to Marcus, and he's going to take a look at the Fusion platform for us. Marcus.
Thank you, David. Let me reshare my screen. Okay, so I'm going to try my hardest to touch on all of the key themes and the core points that Richard has talked about in conversation with David this morning, in the context of the big pieces that make a difference between a pure play sort of Qlik Sense cloud deployment. I'm going to sort of cover on sort of 4 areas. First off, it makes sense to give a high level overview as if I was a user. I'm going to share a demo environment very shortly on the screen. Nothing's to do with hospital data. It's all made up demonstration data, but at least it'll give everyone a flavor for how Fusion Portal works and how it interacts and interoperates with Qlik Sense cloud objects. I'm really then going to focus on 3 areas. So how do you make it your own? Theming is really, really important. If something looks and feels like your world being your organization, then uptake and that adoption that Rich has talked so eloquently about, it's half the journey is making it easy for everyone to adopt, is to make it look and feel like their world. I'm then also going to go into how do you start to build a user journey with data, which is fundamentally nothing more rocket science than making your navigation work for your cohorts of users, whoever they are and whatever they're doing, from chief executive all the way down to somebody that's front of face, or maybe in Richard's case, a nurse with bed management analytics requirements, something like that. And then I'm going to finally talk about how we get one portal that works for all. Richard again touched on sort of users and groups. How do we make one portal work irrespective of the structure of your organization? So that's the objective over the next 5 or 10 minutes before I then hand back to David for live Q&A. So let me pop to here. So Fusion, fundamentally straightforward plug and play deployment for Qlik Sense Cloud. And if you're looking to make the leap from Qlik Sense on premise to Qlik Sense Cloud, then maybe there's a question there that this might actually help you drive that decision to make that leap, to be able to get sort of operational analytics to scale out. I'm going to now log in. So we've created an organization here, a demo organization called Whizbang. It's all made up, and I'm going to log on to that now. Log in as a user. And again, as Richard says, rolling out to users, it's really getting out an email invite, and then the invite driving you straight into the software. It's directly straight into the portal without any further searching around for your analytics. So again, I'm conscious that everyone on this call today will be Qlik savvy, Qlik experts. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the first piece here, but just to give you a really quick walk around. Everything I'm going to be mainly talking about today is on the left-hand side of the screen, and on the right-hand side of the screen, it's mainly really resurfacing Qlik objects into the portal. And so just from a quick guided tour, you structure these these menus in this way to be able to then set it up, typically departmentally, but it can be set up in any logical order that you want. And then every time, bear with me a second, I've got a live demo situation here, reconnecting. I've had it turned on for probably half an hour or so, and it's just disconnected. Bear with me. So every time you create a top-level menu structure, what we're doing is we're sharing the perspectives from all of the different content pages beneath. So in this case, imagine I'm a sales director for this imaginary organization. I get to see a snapshot of all of the different perspectives in the content pages beneath. So here I can see maybe I want to focus on why is my win probability only 47%? I was expecting it to be north of 50%. And you can either click here in any of these content or navigation tiles, or you can go straight to the relevant section of the screen. And in effect, we are resurfacing Qlik objects in a way that is a little bit more structured for that sort of guided navigation look and feel. And again, this is all themed and skinned is the word that we use, but skinned and connected to themes in Qlik Sense as well, to be able to pull this across in the most appropriate way from a look and feel perspective for your organization. This app, when I expand all of these sections, we're looking at, in this case, this demonstration, we're looking at about 4 or 5 Qlik Sense Cloud apps that are mashed up into one solution. And at any point in time, obviously, I can come into here and I can make the typical kind of selections you would expect. It's basically Qlik Engine, Qlik API integration, and making those selections live on the screen. So that's everything sort of on the Qlik side. On the right-hand side of the screen is as you would expect and want it to work for that sort of guided analytics perspective. Now, making it your own, I'm actually logged in as an admin here, so I can kind of come to settings and I can start to configure this if I was rolling this out tomorrow. And you can see I've got a theme here, which is all sort of red and white. I can change my theme. I can make a different theme active in effect. And I'll just move the zoom window out of the way. I could, for example, switch to more of an orange theme. And from a theme level, it's making these changes instantaneously. It's connecting to a different skin and a different theme here. You can specify all the palettes and the color. And immediately, if I was to come back as a user and come into here for a second time, for example, I'm seeing something that's got a different look and feel that's now all orange as opposed to red. And likewise, I could come into here from an appearance perspective and maybe even change the images and the background and the favicons and all of this kind of thing. And I'm now converting my demo environment for this fake company called Whizbang, and maybe I want to switch that over to an organization. I've got another demo environment here. Switch this over to something for a company called Zephyr, another imaginary organization. If you can humor me, I'll pop the background for the Zephyr into here. I won't bother with the favicon icon. I think everyone knows that's this little icon up here in the top of the screen. And if I'm to log out and log in again, you can see instantaneously I've got a very different look and feel, and I've configured the total look and feel across the whole of this portal in a couple of really simple steps. So theming, it might sound really basic and really simplistic, but making something your own is really, really critical to broad scale user adoption. Now, second point is how do we then bring all of this together? And again, Richard very kindly said it takes about 5 minutes per page to build out. It's true. Richard's had the experience in the real world. And I'm going to just take you through that a little bit. Again, I'm logged in as an admin, so I have the ability to create content and build this content and connect to Qlik objects, all of the Qlik dashboards across your estate. I can connect to all of these, and I can I can pull in all of the objects from the applications that I want to be mashed up. In this case, I've just drilled into one particular object. And then you can assemble those objects from wherever they appear inside of your Qlik world to wherever you want them to appear inside of your Fusion world. And you assemble that with the page builder. And again, these pages, I showed you the content tiles. Every one of these, for example, you could configure it and say, when a user comes into the sales area, I want the thumbnail to look like this. I want to add a default to my logo, or I want to specify the top level, most important metric to me that I want to show on the navigation screens. You can do that here, and you can configure all of the pages from a look and feel perspective. For example, let's go and have a look at some sales pages. I can say, okay, I want my top level sales screen to have a different icon. I want it to be an lens aperture instead of an arrow. I want it to be here in the menu. You can draft all of these and then publish them when you're ready. And then you can update these pages. You can build out the pages beneath in terms of the content. And then the very next time you come into the application, you can see immediately that's changed. And you're starting to build out the look and feel for every one of these pages underneath. That is a little bit more structured and a little bit more constrained deliberately, as Richard said, to make it less of a self-service objects in lots of different places without the kind of structure across lots of different apps. This is about bringing structure back to the way in which helps kind of regular organization business type users get what they need in a very short period of time. Now, the third thing I wanted to show today for this demonstration is really quite straightforward. It's only going to take a couple of seconds to show. Is really about users and groups. And again, Richard said quite rightly, getting this out to a mass audience very quickly is really, really important. You can invite users in lots of different ways. You can bulk invite, you can integrate to whatever directories, services that you have. And you can also then configure the groups, which is fundamentally, we are leveraging from everything that is already in place in your Qlik Sense cloud environment. So all of the incumbent security within Qlik Sense is prevalent here. We're just lifting and cherry picking the objects on the screen and putting them in place. But what we've got on top of all of that is the ability to turn on and turn off menus and the navigation based on different cohorts and users and groups. My very basic example here, I've created a group called No Human Resource Menu. And what I'm saying is that if these types of users log in, then I don't want them to see employee retention predictions in the main HR page, but I'm quite happy for them to see everything else. And every one of these pages can be orchestrated based on the really straightforward permissions of we're allowing this user group to view these pages, or this user group can change pages or can delete pages, or in effect remove pages from the navigation structure. So you have the sort of the content management admin type people, and then you have the ability with the standard users to be able to cherry pick which navigation sort of menu structures that you want to be able to turn on and turn off for that cohort of users. So a little bit of a drive-by shooting in terms of a demonstration, but hopefully you can see we've touched on the top sort of topics of why potentially you should consider this kind of tool as an add-on that's the icing on the cake on top of your existing wonderful Qlik Sense cloud environment. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to David.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marcus. That was brilliant. Yeah, an excellent first glance at at some of the things that Richard was talking about. So we have got a Q&A session if anybody wants to ask anything. To start us off, there are some that have been posted in the Q&A channel. So I think I can answer a couple of those quite quickly. The first is, how long does it take to set up Fusion from scratch? It is easy. It's very quick. Obviously, the difficult work in Qlik is already done. So in actual fact, we can set up Fusion with a Qlik instance in days rather than weeks. I think that's probably the best way to put that. Amit has asked us if we'll be sharing the recording. In fact, I think this is going to be a YouTube video. So yes, you'll be able to have a look at it again and share it with colleagues. And Marcus and I's children will be able to look at it and torment us about it as well. The third question is for Richard. So Richard, did you encounter any pushback from specific teams or users? Or was it as easy as it sounded? Maybe, without calling out your colleagues, were there any teams that were particularly tricky?
Yeah. So inevitably there is some pushback. We do get pushback. It wasn't too bad. I mean, I think we got a reasonably broad acceptance fairly quickly. There is still a, we still have and we had quite a long time the sort of Excel culture. I want to have it all in my Excel spreadsheet, and I've got it locally, and I'm, managing it, which was always a bit of a challenge. And we all know that in Excel you can do things that you can't necessarily do in a BI tool, but similarly, there's a lot that BI tools do that you can't do in Excel. I think there were really I come back actually to that main thing of if you can get your exec team to buy into it and look at the top level numbers, and it says, this is the number of discharge summaries that have not been sent. I'm seeing it on my report, and actually I then break it down by directorate and down to specialty and whatever. Then it drives people to go and use that report, because their number may not tie up with the number that you're showing. As long as you get it as you're the single version of truth, which is that buying in from the exec, you then get them. Everyone else sort of has to use it to some extent, and I think that's good. You do need to make sure the data quality is good, because if you're giving them false numbers, so there's a lot of work more in terms of getting the data right than it is in terms of developing the apps and the models and the fusion stuff. So I think those are things. I think the other thing we do sometimes, that people say, well, I want to take the data and I want to use it in Excel to add data to it, information to it. And we're using the Qlik tool to generate those Excels now, so that people are coming back to a consistent set of data. So yeah, it's not all plain sailing, but it is broadly accepted across most of the organization now. So yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. A couple more questions before we wrap
up. Can I chip in actually, because there's one of the questions we have answered. There was a second extra bit on the end of that that's just worth picking up as well, just very briefly. So that was about whether whether you have to install anything locally. So Fusion Portal is a SaaS tool, so there is no install. It is literally it is purchase, setup, configure, and it integrates with directly with Qliksense Cloud behind the scenes and securely. And obviously we can share all of the details behind all of that. We're not storing any data. We are, in effect, we're integrating and interfacing with Qliksense Cloud, and it's up to you organizationally what you want to share with whom. If it's an internal use case, then obviously it's within the walls of your organization. But we've got lots of customers who are global organizations who are sharing analytics at scale through our tool, through Fusion, with Qlik behind the scenes, to business partners, to supply chain, and that type of thing as well. But there is nothing to install locally. That was a little bit that we missed on the first question, David.
Okay. You've just touched there, Marcus, on external use cases. Can it be used for external use cases? I mean, it's a big yes to that. It's great for sharing with customers, partners, key suppliers. We do a huge amount of work in there. I don't know if you can mention any, Marcus.
I'll probably get shot if I mention exact names, but let's say major global automotive manufacturers, for example, doing fleet management portals for their third-party fleet hire organizations that do business with them in that part of their business. That's an example. We've got other examples of large, very, very major retailers that are also then sharing insights at scale with their supply chain, helping to drive better business. So more informed sharing with the supplier insights about stock movements and that type of thing, the performance of the supplier's products. There's a couple of examples without naming any actual names.
Okay, no. Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for being so diplomatic. So the one question we've got remaining is for you, Richard. So a couple of questions in one, really. But by creating a report for one group of users, and you engage them, what happens when those users have got multiple expectations? How do you handle the example here? One person's meat is another person's poison. How do you handle that?
Yeah, you will always have some of those sort of fundamental problems, whatever you're doing. I think one of the things I would say is that I will take the same data and I will build a report for one user group that will be a particular, dumbed down or exec view, and another one that's much more detailed. And I'll put the relevant reports into each of their menu sections. If you have two users of the same group who want to have different views, you have to sort of, if they're both service managers and they have a different view of how they want to see it, you gotta sort of compromise to some extent on that. But certainly tailoring reports for the actual audience you're looking at. So at present, I'm building one that is very much a high level exec one, very simplistic. What's the performance over time, drill down into directorates and specialties. It's designed that way. I've got other ones that are real detailed. Here are all the values, here are all the patients involved and all of that sort of stuff. So it's you design for the audience. Sorry, just if I may come back on the zero client thing. That was a real thing for us. I didn't want any of my data sitting outside the Qlik environment, and that's what the beauty of Fusion is it is really just calling the APIs. It's an interface that does that dynamically for me. It's like using Qlik, but in a front end structure that really works for me.
No, that's a really nice way to sum things up, Richard. Thanks a lot. So I think we can wrap up the webinar now. I think we've answered all the questions, and it falls to me to say thanks hugely to both our speakers, Marcus and particularly you, Richard, for joining us from Great Ormond Street. So to wrap up, I'd like to just summarize, if that's okay. So what we've heard generally is that Fusion is a great way to deliver Qlik adoption, and we saw that organizational engagement at Kosh. It also does this through those predefined dashboards that Marcus showed us. And we heard, I think, importantly, that it can be rolled out very quickly, days rather than weeks, which was me. Anyway, so two big wins for any Fusion-powered organization, I think. Much greater value from your Qlik cloud license estate, because you get that adoption and engagement. But more than that, what does that give you? What's the business benefit? I think it's you get more people having the capability to make better, faster decisions, and that has got to be good for the organization, and it will deliver performance improvements. So thanks ever so much for joining us. And if there are any next steps that you'd like us to take with you, then that would be most welcome. The best thing you can do is reach out to your Qlik partner, and between them and Cat Cloud, we can set something up, and we could even take your Qlik objects, your data, and surface that in a Fusion environment to give you a tailored demonstration. Other than that, just to say thank you for joining us, and any questions arising, please feel free to reach out. Thanks, and I hope everybody has a fabulous weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.